call to order the Capital Improvement Committee meeting of October 5th, 2021 at 2 p.m. I'd like to start off by welcoming Mr. Vandenberg to the committee. He has raised his hand in the air and nobody let him put it down before we grabbed him. So he is now joining us. For the minute taker, we'll do a roll call vote, so the minute taker will know who it is. Start off, Ben.
Ben Tessino here.
Kent Vincent here.
Brandon Ozier.
Dick Vandenberg here.
Mike Fitzpatrick here. Ellie Chesbro and Shirley Mazinski both have an excused absence. They emailed in, they were unable to attend. I think that's our only members that we have other than that. We're going to skip over the minutes for that, for the meeting. We'll do them on the next meeting from the September 16th. We did get the minutes given to us. I didn't circulate them to everybody, so that's why I'm skipping over it. We need to finalize a couple items that are going to go on to the November 8th, 2021 warrant. The first one is going to be, that we'll talk about, is the ceiling repairs at the Simon Fairfield Public Library. Justin, would you like to come up and say whatever it is you need to say?
Well, I guess the question is, what do I need to say?
Well, if you want to talk about your project a little bit, so anybody that cares to watch this meeting would understand what it is that you're looking to have done.
So this kind of came out of, we figured out that we had a leak. Water was coming in through bricks early last year. We got that fixed, but then I was going to get a quote from Jay Baker to paint the inside because there was damage there. It needs fixed, and just, a fresh coat of paint on the walls after all these years would be good. But then that led to the discovery that there's some of the cracks in the ceiling are big and were concerning to the building inspector. So he wanted us to, go about getting that fixed. So I pursued quotes from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different contractors. Only 2 didn't refuse to quote. I'm still waiting on final numbers from Straight Edge Plastering because they've got to consult with their electrician, get him in and look at the project. So the only quote I actually have right now is from Brian Lavalley for this $58,575. That's where we stand.
And what does his quote for $58,000 include? Is that the complete job? Taking care of the
all the light fixtures, the heat detectors, anchoring brackets, installing 3/8 blue board over all the old plastered ceilings, and then plastering and painting the ceilings with 1 coat of paint, and then reinstalling the light fixtures, heat detectors, and all that jazz.
And that's moving all your shelving or whatever he has to move inside?
He was kind of thinking that they could just stage over it. So the shelving that's inside the main room is really the only place where we have shelving that's not attached to a wall. And he thought that it would be easy to stage over it rather than try to move everything out.
All right, help everybody on the board. I went over and looked at that building with Adam. The leak that he's talking about is in the front room to the right. There was a small leak in the corner that he had come in. The ceiling itself, being the horsehair plaster, you got cracks everywhere that's in there. When I had looked at it, I was concerned because there was quite a bit of deflection in the ceiling. Justin's, one of his quotes that he got said that they're 100% sure that it won't come down. I'm not totally convinced that I'd be 100% sure of that, but I had a plasterer go in there on the town's behalf today just to take a look at it because he had trouble getting that. Met there with Adam, showed him the job, and had him do his own assessment. He doesn't feel that it's in danger of immediately coming down. He told Adam what to watch for warning signs that if it was going to come down, but he doesn't feel that it would come down all at once. You'd have small little pieces that would come down prematurely. And he's not going to be able to provide a quote until probably Thursday at the earliest. and I don't know when his quotes are coming in. The problem that we have is we need to have something in place to present to the selectmen tonight, because they have to present, I think it's the 12th, the Finance Committee meeting, for all this stuff that happened to get on the two things that we're talking about today, to get onto the warrant. He has a quote of 58,000, not knowing, just going through a mental exercise of listening what the other guy was saying. It'd probably be in that neighborhood. I did talk to Gene briefly, concerned about budgeting a job and it not being able to be done because it's on the budget. We've done that a lot in the past. I don't think it'll go anywhere near that, but to make sure that everything is covered, things that come up and stuff, I would suggest that we may even consider putting it on for 75,000 onto the warrant.
That was a number that was coming up in my
Yeah,
head.
if there's extra monies that are left over, Gene's just gonna close out whatever it is, and then it gets put back in anyway, so it's gonna enable the job to be a success versus being $1,000 short, now we can't do it.
So I would make the motion to approve 75,000 to repair the...
Yep, I just want to make sure that anybody else has any comments to what, I was just trying to give a quick briefing as to what I knew about it to help everybody through the process. Does anybody have any comments on it or questions?
That seems pretty clear.
Brandon? No?
I do not.
Dick?
I'm good.
You good? Okay, so we have a motion by Kent to recommend $75,000 for the plaster repair at the library, and need a second on that?
Second.
Second. So we have a motion by Ken Vincent, seconded by Ben DeCino. Any further discussions? Don't see any. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Nobody's opposed, so it was unanimous with the sitting people. The second item would be the fire station roof and weatherization. And the weatherization, just so everybody understands, it wouldn't be a complete weatherization of the building, and then if I'm incorrect, Mr. Administrator, just tell me. But it's to, while the roof is being done, there's certain portions of that roof that can't be accessed without taking apart the inside of the building. So it would make more sense to take off some plywood from the outside, be able to insulate above that. Thank you, Justin.
Oh, thank you.
To be able to properly insulate it above, and mostly in the sleeping areas, I think it is. When you go up
And
there,
that
or that
meeting-
upper office that's
In
up there.
that meeting room, it's
That meeting room,
nothing above
yeah.
that either.
Just to be able to get insulation in there at a more affordable rate. So I'm going to turn it over to Kenny. He does have a presentation of some sort that
Well,
Kelly put together.
I'm
for
not
us.
really sure if you want to do this. This is a presentation of all the issues at the fire department.
No, I just want to do the roof. If we want to go through that, I can explain it similar to what I did with.
Yeah, why don't you do that, because,
With
you know,
the library.
I had got a quote a few years ago for like 30,000 after, and that was, I think, Brian LaValle.
Yeah,
And the recent quote came in from Northeastern.
right, yeah, it's much different. So, all these jobs anyways, if they get past the town meeting are going, because they're over the $50,000 threshold, they're going to go out for bid anyways. So it really doesn't matter what the guesstimates that we have, other than just some basis for what our decision is going to be. So ironically, as with the plastering job, the roof job came in at $58,000. Within a couple dollars of each other. So Adam, this was on the capital project, capital list before. I'm the one that stuck the stick in the spokes and asked why it was on there. And then I rode by and see missing shingles, so then it got put back on there again. So it does need to be replaced because we do have some damage up on the roof. A lot of activity on the backside of the roof as far as discoloration and rust and whatnot from flashings that are
And
going
there's
on.
been some ice dam issues in the
Yeah,
past, nothing
yeah.
really major, but
Right. So as with the library, I would actually use the same figure of $75,000 to enable us to be able to cover the cost of that roof, which the quote came in at $58,000, but we had the additional insulation that we want to put into that. I don't know if anybody else has any thoughts on that. I don't know what the square footage of the roof is. The quote that we got has the typical quotes that I don't like. They just have a number. They don't tell you how they broke it down. We have 2,000 square feet of roof at X amount of dollars. So when the proposals come back in, they'll be specified a little better than what that quote is. And that's just done like that, so nobody else can just take it and give a quote off it. And I understand the logic, but it doesn't help us. But that would be my recommendation to the board, if you agree, Chief, it is your building, that we consider recommending $75,000 for that roof and weatherization as well.
Chief, does this dovetail with the generator electrical issue at all?
completely separate right now, I
Okay.
believe. Is that true, Matt?
Yes.
But as they're doing the electrical, does the roof affect any of that work?
No. Nope. Totally independent. Yep. Anybody have any questions on the, other than? The roof will be done, to answer, as far as the roof goes, that'll be done long before the
Electrical?
electrical would be done, because that's, we're just going through the designer process now for the generator portion of it.
Yeah.
Oh, no, that's not even on that, that's on this building. That's not even the same building. So that's a long ways off before the generator and the electrical get done if it passes that town meeting.
Mr. Chairman, if I could.
Yes.
Just so we establish the record for this, our Green Communities application for energy savings grants, which we do a competitive round, if not every year, then every other year, has a number of fire station elements on it this year. One is an LED lighting upgrade, so to upgrade all lighting fixtures in the fire station to LEDs. Another is to replace the oil-fired boiler with a much more efficient oil-fired burner. Then there's an item on here for insulation. We want to insulate this roof regardless of whether the grant application is successful or not. So we will go forward with the grant application, but we'll also ask town meeting for the funds either way. So if the state pays for it, it'll stay in the account and won't be used and be turned back to the town. The estimate for the insulation from the Green Communities contractor was $9,650. So that's what
So
they're
we're-
budgeting.
So we're in line.
We're pretty much in line, yeah.
67,000, so if we're at 75, that gives us a little bit of a buffer in case somebody's wrong. Thank you. Any further discussion on that stuff?
I'll make a motion to appropriate up to $75,000 for the fire station roof replacement
And weatherization.
and weatherization.
You make sure you have that extra word in there, because there's somebody over in the sidelines that won't let you get it done.
And just to
Correct.
remind you, if you can say your name.
Bra-
make the motion.
Brandon Ogier.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you.
Tim
Yes.
Vandenberg, second.
Yep. So we have a motion by Brandon Ogier and seconded by Richard Vandenberg to recommend that we appropriate up to $75,000 for the roof replacement and weatherization of the roof. All in favor?
Aye.
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 That was unanimous. The only other thing that we have on there is it's going to be more of a discussion thing. I don't think it's something that we're going to vote on because it's come to the attention of the town that the highway department has no ventilation within there. So the end result is the office space is exposed to all the fumes and whatnot coming out of the garage portion of it. It's something that we need to address sooner than later. It needs immediate attention. And I've talked to Matt about this and explored a couple different options, is the quickest and probably the logical way for us to go is to lease a office trailer to put outside. Then we can get the office personnel inside the building. The cost of that is like $900 a month, and 9 and change. Also explored purchasing one to see if it would make more sense to purchase one. But the guesstimated quote that Matt received on that was $80,000 to $90,000. So then that doesn't make much sense to buy that, because now we're spending a lot of money for something that we wouldn't recover. The broader picture of this is we need to address the highway bond and potentially a safety complex of some sort to encompass the police and fire for a long-term solution to the problems that we've had for many years. I don't know if anybody has anything they want to add to this, but that's the long and the short of it. But it's important that we start the conversation on this, and that's why the temporary office space got put onto the agenda. If it was something that we were going to purchase, then it could have been a capital item, because it would have lasted more than, was it 5 years or 10 years, Gene? 5 years? And then over the cost of $10,000, so it would qualify. But because we don't own it and we're leasing or renting it, it doesn't qualify for a capital item. But it's important that we start this discussion. I don't know if anybody has any questions or comments to make on it.
Has there been any kind of preliminary long-term talk about working on the highway building or anything?
That's just starting. And just for transparency, I kind of pushed that a little bit because I think it's an important thing that we need to look at. It's just inadequate. Historically, John gets a new truck, he has to take it, cut the headboard off the dump truck, lower it to try to get it in. Well, we've finally reached the point where the dump trucks he can no longer cut them down to fit in. So we do have a couple trucks that passed through town meeting, I believe, Matt? They were on order or something? New trucks for John? And they won't fit in there. So you're not going to buy, I think they're what, $175,000 a piece for those trucks? $190,000 a piece. They'll leave them outside. It doesn't make sense. And they're not going to last long term. They definitely won't last as long as the 96 ones that he had if you leave them outside.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Yeah, all these issues are correct. We have some general obligation debt that's rolling off, excluded debt that's rolling off fiscal '23. And we haven't promised too much in this regard to this point because we didn't know where we would be financially. There was no reason to know, especially with the pandemic, how it was all going to sort out, whether we'd be in a position to talk about a building. So we didn't want to promise the superintendent or his staff. But we're in a much better position now. We have more clarity on what our path forward would be, so now it's a timely conversation. Dump trucks are expensive, but you know what's really expensive is graders. The grader is about 3 trucks if you bought it new. And we store ours in the most inadequate fashion. I looked at the trade-in value on the grader, and it's over $300,000 worth of equipment, and we just leave it outside. It's time to be more responsible about this, get all of the town's very expensive stuff that the highway department definitely relies upon and uses under a roof, and move the air around so that it's safe for our employees to work there. So that's it. we had to have the right spot in the financial dynamic of the town to be able to have this conversation, but we're in a real good spot right now, so it's appropriate.
Yeah, and it's a long overdue need that we've had. We just, unfortunately, we've never been in a position where we could even think about addressing it. It's gonna, my goal is whatever I'm part of is to have it as a long-term solution to what our needs are, not just a temporary thing.
So time to think big.
You need to do it, because if you can push it off, all that means is more things are going to come in, and then you're going to be right back to where you were 5-10 years ago. Now, I think now is the proper time to start this conversation.
We have a unique opportunity based on the financial condition of the town and the current market interest rates
Right.
to get the town probably the best deal it would get in the next couple of decades to do this in the next couple of years.
So what would be the first step?
You have to decide what it is you want to build, and then where do you want to put it. And those conversations are kind of nested within each other. They're not mutually exclusive conversations. And it's on the select board's agenda for tonight to talk about the scope of the feasibility discussion.
And that was, again, is something I'm pushing, to get everybody's input, to find out what he needs and what he wants, what the police needs and what they want, what's the highway department need and what they want. There's two different lists. There's always two different lists if you look at it that way. If you just go by what everybody wants, you'll never figure out how to get the job done. You gotta do it in two different phases in order to make a proper decision on it.
So have the highway people and the police already started thinking?
Yeah, there's been some informal conversations, just to get everybody talking about it. As recent as Saturday, Kent, myself, and Aaron from the police department were just sitting there having an informal conversation and just brainstorming, trying to get everybody's head engaged so we can try to put together a good plan that makes sense for the town. If it's done properly, it'll work for everybody. If it's not, if we go into it half prepared, it's not going to work.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
going back 10 years, when I first became chief, it was on the table for a $120,000 study for a police and fire to do a complex up there. We actually put a stop, because back then, finances was to the point where we actually started doing layoffs. So myself, the superintendent of highway, and the police chief actually said, let's pull that off the table for now. It doesn't make sense to spend $120,000 on a study, but, so it's not really new. It's just a decade later, and we're looking at
We just weren't,
better times.
We
and
just couldn't do
something
it.
where it might
Yeah.
benefit the town more on a wider scale, really.
So is this something that might come up for maybe the May town meeting, is money?
if everything aligns properly, it could potentially get onto the May town meeting. Don't know. It all depends on how it all gets pulled together. This is very premature. There was, the highway department just came into focus very quickly, so it got addressed, and that's what actually started propelling some of it. This is, I've talked about, just very innocently talked about these thoughts in my head for, I don't know, for the last 6 months. But and I never realized that the highway department was like that they had no ventilation in there, which has been addressed on an immediate situation where Adam came up with a very economical approach for a temporary solution, but it's far from what it should be.
So Matt, tonight at the selectmen is part of their discussion looking to maybe set up some kind of ad hoc committee or something, or not that specific yet?
No, I should think so. The classic path for a construction project of this type is that you would retain a design professional to do a quote-unquote feasibility study, which would be more than just loosey-goosey things. It would actually get to the point of conceptual drawings. You can substantially reduce the cost of that by having a lot of your conversations internally, so that when you hire the design consultant, you're pretty clear, this is exactly what we want. Now, work with your software programs to fit that type of building on a certain type of lot. And they might have only one or two options. If you hire them before you've got your thoughts together, they manage the process of getting everyone to talk about what they need and what they want. They manage the process of identifying the property, and you pay for all of that on a time and material basis.
And if
And
you're
it gets
building a
expensive.
portfolio versus getting what you actually want. So it depends, and Matt puts a lot of thought into it. I research everything that I can. There's a lot that goes into it. And just by I'm watching presentations from architects that they did on other jobs that other towns that already got done. And you pick up a lot from that. It's not only your immediate needs, does that piece of property that you're going to put on, will that allow for expansion 30 or 40 years down the road? These are all the different things that you need to talk about. And it's like, to Matt's point, you can just sit there and say, well, all right, figure out what I need. And you're paying somebody a substantial amount of money, where I think we have a good collected group of people that can logically look at it and at least put some thoughts together, so then you can present it to whoever's going to do this work and give them some guidance as to what you want versus taking what they're going to give you.
If you're looking for a good window into the process, the town of North Smithfield, which is not far from here, is doing a scoping study for a police station. And they have two options on the table: to fix up an old school building or to build a brand-new police station. And it's been in the Valley Breeze, and you can go online and see how the issue develops. I think in that particular town's case, they didn't think through enough what they wanted from this. So now they're paying the consultant X number of thousands of dollars to help them work through two radically different ideas.
Right.
And really, my personal recommendation to everyone is that if you get to that point, you're not ready.
Right.
You've got to be able to eliminate one or the other, because it's not even apples to oranges. It's apples to zebras. They're not even close to being the same type of project. So, I don't know, it's a little bit disappointing to see that, but you can also get a per square foot basis off that article,
Yeah.
which is a little bit sobering, but we're in a very strange spot with the construction market right now in terms of shortages of supplies and price spikes. And we probably, in a year or two, we may not be in that same situation.
I think it's a good process to move forward on, and it needs to start.
Yes.
How was it listed on the selectmen agenda for tonight? Just,
Feasibility study public safety complex? Is that what we
Maybe.
put on there?
Excuse me for a minute, I'll go find out.
and are you going to be presenting something at that matter?
I won't be. I think the chiefs and the superintendent will be. This is much more of a free-form conversation about what they would want. I'm sure I'll have plenty to say, but this is an important conversation. You shouldn't stymie people. You should let them download the requirements of the service that they provide and work from that, because that way you'll have a more honest conversation. You won't leave any issues to fester. You just put it all on the table. This is what we need, and then try to do what you can from
Is this
there.
the first time the selectmen are doing this since you've come?
Yeah, I think so.
Discussion on public safety complex feasibility committee establishment, possible votes. So it's not just public safety, it also would be involve the DPW. There's a lot of thoughts floating around in the air, so I think as everything gets pulled together, we should be able to come up with a decent scope of what we're looking for, and then move on to the next step.
All right.
Good?
That'll be fun discussion.
Yeah. It's needed. As Matt says, the timing's much better than it has been in the past. It's long overdue to address, so. Anybody else have anything else? Oh, jeez. All right, go ahead, Gene.
I just want to clarify, so the only thing that's staying on for Article 12 is the roof and the weatherization.
Roof and weatherization, and what else was on there that we took off?
HVAC, as
Yeah.
well as the electrical upgrade and replacement generator.
We already voted on the replacement generator and the electrical upgrade. Matt had given us, I think it was 292?
92.
I
Yep.
believe so.
The HVAC was only on the agenda of the capital committee because it was a discussion
Yeah,
that I would seek clarification around ARPA eligibility, that as the project is scoped out, if we could use ARPA money to improve really, it's mostly the cooling in the building, then we would do that. Green Communities strongly disfavors cooling-only projects. They will not support that.
yeah.
Unless you have some sort of miraculous energy savings calculation, because the unit you're running is so old. But that's really not where we're at. We don't have any units, except for window units and portable units. So there is a provision in the ARPA for HVAC systems in critical public infrastructure, which I would make the case a fire station is critical public infrastructure, and that it is an asset that's being used to respond to the COVID crisis, because that's where our cross-trained EMTs work from. So that's the angle I'm going to take on it and see if I'm not promising anybody. It's usually in the hands of an attorney to interpret the words in the statute and in the regs to arrive at that conclusion. If you add up all of the Green Communities requests, this ARPA investigation, and what we're asking for town meeting, it's basically a complete overhaul of the fire station.
Okay, so 292 for the electrical upgrade and replacement generator, 75,000 for the roof replacement, and there's no movement on, HVAC will not be included in this article.
Right.
Okay.
And I'm just looking at the chief, that last report from Mr. Murphy, that 292 is ringing a bell with you, is the correct number. Yeah.
Yeah, matter of fact, I have it right here, so.
If it's a copy you can part with, let's give it to Jean so that she can.
She can have this one.
It was 292 with the contingency.
292, 200.
So, do you want to increase that to an even 3?
That's got, yeah, it's got like a 20% contingency built in, Jean.
Okay.
I know that 200 kind of dangles out there and makes it sound like it was an estimate, but I think he's got a 10% design
yeah.
contingency and a 10% construction contingency. I think it's plenty of padding.
Okay. So 292.
Do you want this, Gene? There's that roof quote there too, by the way.
292, 2? Thank you. And the only thing else I have, Mr. Chair, is, and I don't need to go through this tonight, there's 2 reports here. One is the balances on the pay-as-you-go capital through 6/30. And I did that just so you would have kind of like the closeouts that we transferred. And the second is the pay-as-you-go capital as of 9/30. So you'll see the list is much shorter, and that's because we used the closeout as funding sources. So I will be using the closeout of the painting of the post office, as well as one of the vehicles that we bought, as funding sources for the capital article.
So looking through the minutes, Matt, she didn't put down that we voted on the money for the cleanup, but we voted on that money for the cleanup, the oil cleanup.
Yeah.
Yeah. We had voted on that.
Do you remember the dollar amount for that?
134,000. Was for the cleanup. Total cost remaining task 165,545. I'll forward you this, the meeting minutes that she had drafted up.
I'm sorry, 160,
165, 545.
and that's what
The
you...
estimated project, so the project was 154.95, and the engineer carries a 10% contingency for unforeseen conditions of 15,000, so the total cost is 165,545. 165,545.
And that's what we want the article to be.
Correct. On that 292, the recommendation was made by Shirley and seconded by Brandon. Anybody have any questions on Gene's spreadsheets?
Never question Jean about money. She knows what she's talking about most of the time.
I'd rather have you ask the question.
Just never ask if she found any.
Never ask her a question off the top of her head.
That is true, those are both true statements.
You want your agenda back?
No, you can keep it. My present.
Donations, I can't accept presents, even though it's under $50. You good? Entertain a motion to adjourn if nobody has anything else.
So moved.
Seconded.
Motion made by Kent Vincent to adjourn, seconded by Brandon Ogier. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? No, don't look like it.